You are watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts.
Are you ready? I'm saying, are you ready? Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform
Or ask your smart speaker
to play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Right, Chris.
All right, how are we doing? Good evening, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good night, goodbye. Hello, welcome along. I know I'm not wearing a Nottingham Forest shirt before anybody says it. It is the latest retro shirt. Don't start me on that. I had a bit of an argument with the club over retro shirts this week, but well done, City. You came through. It's LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry for the lateness of our arrival. We were waiting for a Watford fan to join us. I don't know whether he's gone up the wrong way up the M1 or what, but he's not made it. So we put it back to tonight to accommodate him. But there you go. Look, these things happen. I'm sure there's some genuine excuse, and I hope he's well. And I hope everything's all right, and there's nothing too bad has gone on. It's the first of a double header tonight. Coming up later, we have got the prediction show. We don't want to talk about that because some of us are dropping down the league faster than Everton without a points deduction. So I'm trying to move on and forget that totally. Craig's on top of me now, and I tell you what, that's not a nice thought. But it is. Thank you for watching, and if you are listening on your favourite podcast platform, I thank you for doing that as well. This is the preview show. We've got Watford of the weekend. We'll be talking to Craig straight after this. Good evening, Craig. How the devil are you, sir?
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, everyone. I'm very good, thank you, Chris. Good to be back after missing the last one. Thought I was going to miss this one, but we're here and looking forward to the season kicking off again.
And thank you for moving tonight to accommodate the Watford fan. Look, we hope everything's all right there. You never know
Exactly.
what's the other end. And tonight, of course, is the excitement of Rotherham hosting Leeds.
Yeah, big excitement up there in South Yorkshire, I'm sure. But we could do with Rotherham taking some points off them. That'd be nice.
It would, wouldn't it? Like the smile off their faces because
they've had some decent results up there. I think they took points off Ipswich, predicted by myself. I did predict, and before the international breaks that Ipswich would get 2 draws in their last 2 games and drop points, and lo and behold, they did.
This is why you've gone above me in the prediction league, methinks.
Potentially, I think getting the right results and scores will probably do it. Yeah.
Yes, it will. It will. But look, we've got Watford coming up next, and is it panic time, or don't panic, Mr. Mannering? What's your feeling on the situation? 2 losses in a row.
That's not good. I think I don't think the losses in themselves are any cause for concern. I think what is a little bit of a cause for concern is the lack of goals. You know, we are making chances, probably not as many chances as we should be doing. You know, I think we're still a little bit too slow in our build-up. You know, and it looks like he's not going to change. He's come out and said, if you want to watch quicker transitions, then go and watch Ipswich and Leeds. I think he said something along those lines anyway. But so, yeah, a little bit worrying that we're not hitting the back of the net, because that's, you know, you've got to do that to win goals, to win games, and we're not doing it. It's almost like, I don't know if there's a certain air of just, you know, it's too easy. You know, some of those chances that Iheanacho was snapping up earlier in the season, he just looks half-hearted at the minute. And again, we're not that far away from the January window, so we don't know if there's things going on in agents, you know, dropping things in people's ears. So, you know, those who could potentially move, are they going to go and put 100% in and risk injuries in this run up to Christmas? I'm not sure. So there's a lot to ponder. But going back to the original question, no cause for panic yet.
If we're not panicking about that, are we annoyed about Everton? I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I did a show on it the other night. First of all, a bit harsh. I mean, if they'd gone into administration, they would have, you know, been docked 9 points. It's been 10. Was that not enough? And should Leicester pursue, you know, the court to try and get some money for lost earnings, which is basically what it is?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think that it's too much, to be honest, because in theory, if you get docked 9 points for going into administration, your club is on the ropes anyway, but you've followed the proper procedures, and that's what's taken you into administration. You know, if you're trying to cheat it, then you deserve a bigger punishment. You know, that's what they've tried to do. You know, they could have come out quite easily early on and said, hold the hands up. Yeah, you know, we've done this a bit wrong here. But, you know, at that point, they would have probably been relegated. So they make it as difficult. These clubs make it as difficult for the law enforcement of the game to find out what's actually going on. They've got lots of clever lawyers, I'm sure, hiding money here, there and everywhere. So in this day and age, with that much money floating around the game, you get what you deserve. You know, if it was us, it's the same. You get what you deserve. We sort of got away with it when we did it, you know, but we almost went into administration as well. And we didn't break any rules. Otherwise, we would have got some punishment as well. But there's enough money in these football clubs for them to not be in this predicament. They just throw money around, and they throw it everywhere except the most important people in the game, which is the fans. The fans come into it last. If they're even given any thought, you know, how long did this last about? Oh, in COVID, football's nothing without the fans. Yeah, they soon forgot about that pretty quick, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
You know, so fair play to our club as well for offering to pay half the ticket price for the Ipswich game on Boxing Day as well, where we've been shafted again by the money makers at Sky. So
it is. A lot of people were saying maybe putting some travel on might have been a better option, but look, you know, they've made an effort, the club, and that's the thing. And the second part of the question was, do you think you are right in trying to sue?
I think we should. I mean, why not? I don't know. To be honest, it should be the Premier League who are being sued, not the club. You know, the club are playing in the Premier League. You know, the Premier League have not done their due diligence and kept on top of the finances of all these clubs. The Premier League are the ones who didn't get this decision made earlier. So why are they not being hauled about? You know, it's like they get away with it. You know, oh, look, it's like if somebody in your business, you know, is stealing or whatever, yeah, they get done. But it doesn't look particularly well on the company as well. And the Premier League have just like, well, we've done everything we can. And I heard someone, and again, another thing that really gets my goat is this constant thing that everything should be about the Premier League, everything. And I said exactly the same when we were in it. So this isn't because we're not in it. There are 92 football clubs. There are hundreds of thousands of fans who support clubs who are not in the Premier League. And one of the journalists or somebody high up said, the last thing the Premier League need is for other clubs to be suing Everton. This is the last thing. It's bad enough that get lost. They've broken the rules. If they hadn't have done, every chance that we wouldn't have been playing in the Championship. So why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we look for some compensation? Why shouldn't the clubs from the previous season as well? I think it's Burnley and Leeds.
Well,
Why
Leeds
should they get some compensation as well?
Yeah.
Why not? Why should it be looked at? Why are clubs who are seeking compensation for playing by the rules the ones who are being castigated for trying to get some revenue back?
Yeah,
it's all wrong.
No, totally. I mean, I was just on the show I did. It said that there's a lawyer that's advising us that we will, we have got a case. I mean, the 100 million is pie in the sky. Apparently, we can forget that. And I suppose if any club gets a claim against them for 300 million pounds, they're going to go into administration, which is another 9 points they're going to lose. My argument is that had this been applied a couple of seasons ago when it first came out, or last season, and how long? It's one case. It's not like Man City that got 115 cases, so maybe that's why that's taking longer. It's only one case. Had it happened last season or the season before, Burnley would have stayed up at their expense. Ourselves or Leeds, but it would have been us because we were the one that finished third to the bottom, would have stayed up. We could have well kept hold of Maddison. But what's happened this season is that, yes, they've been docked the points, but I don't think they're one of the 3 worst teams in that division.
No.
And I think they've got a damn good chance of staying up.
No, if we were all cynical people, which obviously none of us are, particularly of our age, of all the football we've seen, then you would say that it seems quite convenient for the Premier League to dock them points during a season where it's not really going to put them in danger of going down.
Yeah.
But as I say, that would be a totally cynical point of view and not one that either of us would subscribe to, I'm sure, Chris.
I'm sure the Premier League would not come out and say that it preferred Everton to stay up over Luton or Sheffield.
No.
I'm sure they wouldn't at all. But look, we will see how that plays out. There's obviously an appeal going into the Premier League from Everton. Everton, the people that have actually decided this 10-point, the panel is the same panel that will look at our case if we do decide to sue. I've got to be honest with you. For me, I can see why, and it's a very good argument. And I hadn't even thought about the Maddison thing. Would we have been able to keep hold of Maddison had we stayed up, or could we have demanded more money for him if we'd stayed up? It is probably the more important. I think he probably would have gone anyway. But I don't know. Paul's just said there. I do apologise, Paul. I think Paul's a Leeds fan or he's an Everton fan. He's one of the two. You can't sue over 2 seasons that have been punished twice, and once one club sues another, all hell will break loose. That is the problem, then, isn't it? Where does it stop? When was it Sheffield United went down because the ball didn't go over the line or something? Do they?
Yeah.
VAR and PGMOL. It is opening a Aladdin's cave of trouble, isn't it?
It is, but that doesn't mean that you can just get away with any wrongdoing with no consequence.
No. It's going to be interesting. It's not going to be. It's never a boring season with Leicester, is it?
No, even when we're not in the Premier League, we're making headlines.
Yeah, we are indeed. Look, normally I would be talking to Pidge, the Watford fan, but he's not. Like they've been able to make it. 19th manager in 11 years. It's a hell of a lot. And I was looking back, and I was talking to him. I think it was Dave, and he was saying there's a stage, maybe under Mandrich, when we were going through the swinging door on the manager's office era. I don't think we managed that regularity, did we?
No, I don't think we did. I think you do wonder. I think obviously they've got is it Italian owners,
Yes.
and I think that sort of revolving door is a little bit more commonplace in Italy, I think, and they've just brought that model over here. And let's not forget, Chelsea were experts at it. If you didn't meet the targets at Chelsea, there was none of this. Yeah, we're building for something. You're out, as Graham Potter found. They bring him in with what ridiculous was it 7-year contract or something stupid because we're gonna let him build his own team and blah blah blah. Yeah, a few dodgy results. Right, you're out. So it's just the Watford way, isn't it? I mean, no wonder there's a queue. There's probably already a queue forming, to get the job next time because you just do a little bit, win a few games, lose a few games, and get a payoff.
I would take the job at Watford because, like you say, you get a payoff. I don't feel sorry for any of these managers. I mean, everybody said, "Oh, look at Nigel Pearson," and I love Nigel Pearson. He wasn't treated very well. They got a very nice payoff. None of these guys ever would have to work again if it was you and me and getting that sort of money. So,
exactly.
I don't feel so, but they're just not learning. That's the thing, And I don't understand why clubs do not give the managers like rolling contracts.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to sit by. It's a gamble, isn't it? Because particularly, it's a huge drop from the Premier League to the Championship. That drop again into the League One is a chasm. So if you're not doing well, do you let someone build? How far do you let someone build? How far down do you go to let someone build? And sadly, it is a results game. And if you can't turn it round quickly, then you get the bullet. I think sometimes if there's signs that people are buying into the concept, because I think they gave him an extended contract, didn't they, recently? I'm sure they did, which was a shock to everyone, probably no more than the manager himself. But yeah, it's always difficult. If we were in it, I mean, we saw how the crowd reacted when results started going to us. I think most crowds will be the same now. So then the crowd pressure builds when you're losing games week in, week out. It's very difficult then for the board to turn around and say, no, we're fully behind the manager, because we saw how toxic it gets in football these days. But I think they were ahead of the curve because they've been doing it for a decade.
Yes, but it's true because, I mean, that last season, that was us with Rodgers, wasn't it? And at the end of the day, he made that decision that he wanted to give Rodgers as much time as he can do. And if he had turned it round, we would be sat here going like, oh, well, we've got an owner with a bit of a backbone that shows.
I tell you what, if we go 6 games without winning, you see how the crowd react down at the King Power.
Yes.
There's no patience these days.
Not at all. Not at all. Nobody's going to get sort of the Arsene Wenger time, when he went without winning anything, or the Alex Ferguson time, if you like. But look, that's the difference. We're still topped by the skin of our teeth. We'll cover that more. We still can't draw a game, but we've lost 3 now. But we are still top of the pile. It could have been worse had you got your predictions been wrong and Ipswich had have won those 2 games that they'd got. But you look at that for Watford, and it's all right. The 13th, very mixed for them. They can't, there's no consistency. Won 5, drawn 6, lost 5. Yes, they're on a bit of a run at the moment, but 6 draws. That isn't really, promotion form, is it?
It's not. You always look at those draws, don't you? And you think, right, what if they'd have gone the other way? 12 extra points, turning them into wins. They'd have been right up there. 6 less points, they'd be right struggling down at the bottom end. So I think it sounds like it's almost typical Watford. Watford, if I remember rightly, when they've got promoted, they usually start well and carry on. Rarely can I remember them coming through the pack, a Watford team. So this is probably going to be their season going forward. But as you say, looking at that, 6 unbeaten there, it's not bad.
they're better than us at the moment.
Yeah.
And again, we'll look at that sort of coming up. But they have got the draws in there. I mean, if only we'd have held out against Middlesbrough and Leeds, we wouldn't be looking quite
I mean, exactly. I mean, that's the same points tally over the last 6 games. So
do you think had those 2 losses for us? I mean, Leeds, in fairness, deserved it. They were the best team for me that we played all season, and whoever finishes above Leeds will get promoted, in my opinion, if they carry on like that. Middlesbrough, they weren't as good as Leeds, and maybe we shouldn't have lost that. We didn't deserve to win it, I don't think, but we don't necessarily deserve to lose it. Had those 2 losses, had the sort of the red been the top and the bottom rather than 2 at the top, I don't think we'd be panicking quite as much, would we?
Exactly, that's it. If you look at, you spread all your defeats throughout a season, it never looks that bad. As you say, if they were the first 2 games of the season and then we'd been on a great run, we'd have all been happy with it. I mean, we can't complain about where we are and the start that we've had. It just needs to be stopped in its tracks at the minute with a victory. I'm sure even a draw is going to be disappointing, after a couple of weeks off, I think. So, and it'll just crank up the pressure a little bit. So,
are we a victim of our own success, if you like?
Yeah, I think, we've been doing this for the last 5 years, or since we won the league. We've been victims of our own success. And with that comes the fact that there's less patience when things don't go so well. So, as I say, a couple of more losses over the next couple of games, and the pressure will be on, even though we will probably still be in the top 2, even if we lost the next 2 games, but that won't be reflected in the feeling and the atmosphere around the ground. That's for sure.
It won't. I mean, I told you, it's going to sound bad. I wasn't glad when we lost to Hull because, you never want to lose a game. But I was glad we got that one out the way.
Yeah.
It's still like, well, we've lost that after the albatross from around our neck. But at the start of the season, I was saying I'd be happy with playoffs, and I wouldn't be totally disappointed with 7th or 8th at the start of the season. Yeah. And look where we are now, and yet I'm ranting and raving at the performance against the Middlesbrough side. But I think when you look, did players let them know? You mentioned it before. Is the January window looming? 6 players said, "Well, no, we're going to stop and give it a chance." They're now sort of, indeed, he's been linked with away. Ian Atcher's been linked with away. But do you think that's going to sort of? Are we going to lose them, or is Top going to stand firm?
Well, I think the club may stand firm, to be honest, because I don't think, unless somebody comes in with a ridiculous offer, it's a gamble, isn't it? Because at the end of the season, they're going to go for nothing. What's the value of them in terms of, are they going to be the difference between us getting promoted or not, or can we replace them? Profitably replace them. What he also has to bear in mind is that some of those players are going to be disappearing for January anyway. So you've got to look to life without them. Ndidi and Iheanacho are going to be gone. Daka's going to be gone. So, there's 3 players who potentially could move on in January, or definitely in the summer, that we're going to have to do without in January anyway. So it's almost like you're getting a sneak preview of what the team would be like without those players. So it'd be interesting to see how he pitches it. Whether he, you talked about Wilfs being fit and available, I think, for the weekend, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I've been surprised that Daka hasn't got more minutes, to be honest, because I don't think Vardy showed up particularly well in the last.
Hasn't he, for Zambia?
For Zambia, yeah, he's been banging goals in. I'm surprised, because I'd have thought at this level, he'd have been able to get a few goals, to be honest. But as I say, he's got December, and then he's going to be gone. And we may never see him again.
It reminds me of the Iheanacho situation. Is that everybody was sort of saying like, "Oh no, he's useless. Why did we pay all that money for him?" But he was getting 10 minutes here, 15
Exactly.
minutes there. It was only when Vardy was injured and there was a couple of others injured that Rodgers had to play him. That suddenly, well, this guy can score. You know what I mean? And let's get rid of Vardy and let's keep Iheanacho. And now you look at Daka, he's getting less minutes than Iheanacho was at that time. How the hell can he prove himself?
Exactly. This has got all the hallmarks of a Kramaric for me. That a player will move on and do well, and all the fans will be like, "Well, why didn't we give him a chance?" And we don't know what's going on at the training ground, obviously.
Yeah.
But you would have thought if he wants to play in that, maybe he's not been as adaptable as Maresca would have wanted. He's talked about Jamie having to change his game a little bit, drop a little deeper, and he does drop deeper in games, but his touch isn't as great to make that successful. Maybe Daka just can't do that, or maybe Daka's natural instincts, as Jamie's, have been throughout all his career, is to play on the shoulder. When he came on for a little 15 minutes, I think, against Sunderland, he looked like a player who was prepared to put the effort in, and he ran around and he was closing people down. I would like him to get some minutes before he goes away to the African Cup of Nations to just see what he can do, to be honest. But now it looks like Cannon's fit.
Yes.
Is Daka going to be pushed one further down the pecking order?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. And I think as well is, like you say, and like Christiansen's come out and said, I don't see a future at Leicester.
Yeah.
I don't want to adapt because this is my position that I play. And let's face it, he was pretty good at it. Why should he need to adapt? And a new manager comes in, and this happens. Fans' favourites, that suddenly don't fit into the new manager's plans. You can't just keep them just because of who they are.
No, it's right, and it's the right thing. You should buy players who adapt to the way that you want to play, rather than trying to fit them. The old square pegs in round holes. We've seen that before, where managers just want to play their favourites. Gareth Southgate. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where they play. You'll just play them and get them on the pitch. So at least Maresca is being consistent. Players have to adapt; they have to play, and you would think that that's going to be going forward into the January transfer window, where we're probably already being linked with players that probably none of us have heard of, but because they fit the system that he wants to play. And I know that he has been taking a much keener interest in the younger teams going down the pyramid through at Leicester, so the under-21s, the under-18s, to make sure all of the teams are playing in the same way, so that when those players make the progress through the age groups, that they're ready to play in his system.
Which it sounds strange to be saying this about a Leicester manager, but it's common sense.
You would think so. Because it's that thing, isn't it? And I think that, again, this is probably a more of a foreign thing and almost more German, I would say, than anything. Particularly if you look at what German teams, they have a way of playing, and they will put a manager in place who fits the way of playing rather than adapting the team to the manager, which makes total sense. If you've got a way of playing that is right the way throughout your club and you're being fairly successful at it, then the manager should be the one who can get that extra 10-20% out of those. If every time you change manager, you bring in a manager with a totally different philosophy, that's going to take time to work, and it doesn't benefit the club in the long term. So it's going to be interesting now, because if Maresca is a success, he's going to be plucked, and go to somewhere else. Are we then going to look for someone in that style again and continue with it, or are we going to say, right, we'll try for something different now, and then everything through the club has to change? So it's quite a pivotal couple of seasons for the club, I think.
And it's the same with every. I mean, I think this is one of the problems with our opponents at the weekend. Is every time they get a new manager and it comes in with a new style,
exactly,
wanting new players, there's no consistency there, is there?
Yeah. I think we're in a better position now, because it's I think the players that we've got at the club, particularly, and then with the manager who's coming in, it would have been a total shock to everyone, I think, if we were skirting around the wrong end of the division.
Yeah.
I think we're in a much stronger position now where we should never be in that position again. You know, you may get a freak season, but at least that does give you an opportunity of, yes, you want to get back in the first season, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons to build something and build a style of play without having to flirt and look over your shoulder at League One. So we are in the right position. It could be even if we go up now, you know, this season, it's a season too soon for us, because we've seen it when we've come up to against better teams in the cups already, that we've been found lacking a little bit. And I don't think we'd be ready at all. And you've seen the clubs that have come up, you know, this season in the Premier League, you know, who, you know, Burnley was smashing everything and they're really struggling at the moment. So sometimes, you know, you need a couple of seasons to bed it in. So, you know, yeah, we all want to go straight back up, but, you know, longer term, if he can keep the manager here, keep that bedrock of players, but more the playing style, and then bring players in to fit it, then we'll be in a much better position long term.
Have you been reading my notes?
Sorry, mate. No, I'm not. Maybe it's just a great minds think alike kind of situation.
I think it is, because I was going to say, look at Burnley now, and the problem is if you go up too soon, and let's not forget in our not so distant past, Jock Wallace's team. You know, you can go up too soon. And I was speaking to Dan the other day very briefly, and he's saying it's really, really bad there. But, you know, he says you can see what he's trying to do. The worrying thing for him is that they've spent a lot more money now that they've gone up.
Yeah.
And it's still not working. But, you know, it's a long season, both for Burnley and both for us. And I think that was the thing I said when I was saying about if we finished 7th or 8th and didn't go up this season. And well, funnily enough, we'll talk about that when we come on to our past match later on, which I'm sure people can work out which one we're going to be covering. But you know, I said at the start, I said, well, if we finish 7th or 8th, but we've built a good team, and then we go up even stronger the following year, I wouldn't be crying into my soup. But then we have that fantastic start, and suddenly, you know, we're Barcelona.
It's like when we finished in the Europa League. You know, we'd have all taken that at the start of the season, but when you're in the Champions League slots for 8 months out of 9, and then you end up in the Europa League, you feel disappointed.
Yes, yeah. Scott is just saying here that all players are fit apart from Callum Doyle. So, and he's going to be. This is just from his. He was mentioning about the press conference earlier, and Will Alvis is getting time with the team. Sammy Braybuck will be recovering, and Chowdhury like to start ahead of Pratt in the wings position. Again, makes sense, but Pratt's not. You know, yes, he could be fit, but there's a difference between fit and match fit.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I think in that position. And this is why I wouldn't necessarily put Ndidi in there as well. Your first touch has got to be so good, because if it isn't, you're turning the ball over in a really dangerous position. And Chowdhury and Wilf have both got loads of fantastic assets on a football pitch. Receiving the ball from a goalkeeper with their back to goal when being put under pressure, I'm not sure that is their strong point, to be honest, for that first touch to be good enough to get them out of trouble. Whereas I feel Pratt has got a much better first touch and a much better awareness of what's going on around the pitch. So, yeah, I think it's a big call for Maresca, whoever he puts in there instead of Winks.
I wouldn't argue with what you've said at all, believe it or not. But do you not? Did I say there's a difference between being fit and being match fit, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, part of me expects him to potentially put Ricardo in there and play Chowdhury at right back, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a possibility. How big a loss is not having? I mean, right, it's only going to be for one game. Let's be honest. The guy's not out for the season injured. but one game. He has been, I think we all picked him as our player, our best signing of the summer. How big a miss is Harry Winks going to be tomorrow?
I think potentially he's a massive risk because he is at the heart of everything. He has got that Premiership quality about him. As I say, he can take the ball in tight situations and rarely gives it away. He's always one step ahead in terms of he knows where he's going to go with it next. I'm not sure we've got many of those players who can do that role. So, but this is a test, and it's a test of the squad, as it's going to be throughout the season, as players pick up niggles, particularly as you go into winter. Players are going to pick up niggles and miss a game here and there, not necessarily suspensions, but they're going to get little knocks and little strains. So this is an opportunity for him to see what else he's got there and how adaptable those players are.
Should we be so reliant on one player, though?
No, but I think, we're not at a level where we can have a ready-made sort of replacement at the level, You see it in even some of the bigger clubs. I mean, De Bruyne has gone out and they've got Rodri and they've got enough central midfield players there. But even you saw the weakness in Liverpool last season when they're their first choice midfielders. They basically had to rebuild their midfield this season because it wasn't good enough. And I think most teams in that position will have a pivotal player who is integral to the team, and when they're missing, then it is a challenge. And as I say, Maresca's, he's almost only got himself to blame because this is his style of football. This is how he wants to play football. So that position is important, and you would expect that, particularly with Chowdhury being at the club, for the past couple of weeks while others have been away on international duty. Wilf has been there working on his fitness. Maybe he has spent a little bit more time with them, honing them to play that role.
Indeed. And the problem, I think, as well is if we did have a ready-made replacement for Harry Winks, you're talking about, Harry Winks standard, would that other player be happy to play second fiddle?
Exactly.
In a team in the Championship, Rodri at Man City. Well, I'm sure he doesn't mind the wage packet he's going to get. But that's my worry. Luca, thank you so very much. He's an Arsenal fan, of course. How are you doing? And Milton Keynes as well, which maybe not doing so well. I've got to be honest with you, Luca. I don't even know how Arsenal are doing. I just don't follow the Premier League with us not being in it. I'm sorry, but thank you for predicting a 2-0 win to us. That's Watford's form. Again, I think that goes back. All right, they take the first couple of games out because the table, I don't think, sort of means an awful lot to this. At the end of game one, they were top. But that to me shows like their inconsistency. They had a good run, then they went off, then they've gone back up again. There's no. It just does not. That's not what I would want to see on a team graph of my team.
No, but you would want to see that. If you'd have seen those first couple of months, then you'd be quite happy with that bounce back. What you would expect from there is probably that they're in a position where they're going to end up in and around that sort of. Maybe they'll have a month or so with flirting with the playoffs, but I can't see them anywhere other than sort of 8th to 14th, to be honest.
Yeah. This now is interesting, because this is the form table. Based on the last 6 games, we are 7th, but all right, you got the 5th, 6th, and 7th all on 12 points. It's purely on the fact that they say the goals have dried up for us. Watford are 5th. I think if Leeds had the better start, they'd be right up there with us. Yeah,
definitely. And I think what they, I think we touched on this. The last time I was on, that Leeds are probably a month behind us because of how long it took them, firstly, to get their new manager in, but then secondly, to have a settled team of, the players who, are they going to go, are they going to stay? I mean, let's remember that at the start of the season, those first few games, there was 3 or 4 of them who looked like they were going to go, and a couple of them were on strike. So, we had a settled team, we had a settled manager, we were in place. So they're like 4 weeks behind us, and I think now they're catching up to where we are, and they've got a strong squad there. And if they keep them together, let's don't we're not going to be the only ones in January who are trying to keep hold of our best players, though. There's always going to be half a dozen teams in the Premier League who are going to be looking for reinforcements to bolster. And they're going to be looking at Leeds, they're going to be looking at Leicester, they're going to be looking at Southampton, because they're particularly made up full of Premiership quality and experienced players. So they're going to be looking at us. So we're all going to be in that position, I think. But Leeds, I fully expect, as you said, Chris, that Leeds are going to be up there at the end of the season.
I think I read this, that there's ever been a season where the 3 promoted clubs have come straight back down and the 3 relegated clubs go straight back up. Yeah. It's looking like that could actually happen this season. But to go on a point, a very good point you made earlier, and it shows, I think, in this table, all right, we're not talking huge. I mean, let's not press that panic button, just quite yet. But the reason we are 7th is because we've scored less goals than we're not necessarily scored less. Our goal difference is no better.
Yeah.
And we know the goals have dried up. And the thing was that before the goals, we weren't relying on Vardy or Iheanacho. You had the likes of McAteer, Fatawu, everybody else indeed were chipping in with goals. I mean, I think there was 13 players. Even Vestergaard popped up and got a goal. Just thought I'd mention that. Should we be worried now that, because normally if you say, if the striker doesn't score, then, if Vardy wasn't scoring, Mahrez would come in and get a few goals. But that has dried up as well. If Tom Cannon comes back, and that was still the shock transfer of the window for me. I'm like, who? He's coming in on reputation of what he did last season, as indeed did Callum Doyle from his superb season at Coventry. There's going to be a hell of a lot of pressure on him, isn't there? Or is there?
I don't know. I don't think there is, to be honest. I think he looks, from the bits we've seen, and I don't think anybody's seen loads. We'll have all seen clips on YouTube and God knows what. He looks like a natural goal scorer. So if we can continue to make chances, I think he'll get goals, because he looks like he's a sort of penalty area predator rather than a sort of link-up player. So again, it'll be interesting to see how that fits with the way that Maresca wants to play. The concern for me is that we don't seem to be getting enough players in the box. That's what I've noticed. You look at some players, teams, Leeds, Southampton, when they break, there's 4, 5, 6 players in the box. So even if a defender gets the first touch and it breaks, you're picking the ball up. And we don't. We had occasions in the last couple of games, and the one at home, particularly at Leeds. I think we had a lot of possession. The wingers were on the ball a lot, but there's hardly anybody in the box. We haven't got strikers who are going to, outleap some big Championship central defender. So, we end up having to work the play, and that's an issue as well. Even the best teams, Man City, probably the team that likes to play ball more than any other one. Because they've got Haaland, they don't mind lumping it in the box. They'll just swing a cross in. We don't do that. So unless we've got enough players forward in support, then the chances are going to dry up. So he does need to find a solution to that.
Again, reading my notes, because that Leeds game, the number of times we broke down the wings, and I think it was Vardy, wasn't it, that started that game front. And he was nowhere to be seen. No. And that game would have been different had Fatou's goal been a couple of inches lower. But he had to shoot because, like I say, there was no support in the box for him.
I saw some worrying signs from Vardy the last few games, to be honest, that he's seems to be settling back into a level of complacency where he just hangs around in between the 2 centre halves. Whereas when we started this season with a new manager who gave him his belief and gave him his trust and said, right, go out, show me that you're worthy of a starting place. And Vardy was looking more like his old self. He may have only been playing 60 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on whether he started or came on. But the last few weeks, for me, he's looked less like that Vardy that we'd started to see at the start of the season, of starting to make more intelligent runs in behind, or even, closing down defenders. He sort of seems to have lapsed into a little air of complacency, which is probably the rest of the team are doing at the moment as well. And maybe these two results will be the kick up the backside that they need.
I forget all my notes, all my questions that I very stupidly prepared for you, because I was about to say, are we relying too much on Vardy? I mean, I would chuck them up in the air, but I'd only have to pick them up afterwards. So I'm not going to do that. But like you say, great minds. I think it is great minds. Are we relying too much on Vardy? I'm surprised he's playing as much as he has done. In fairness, at the start, we did well, like you say, which he seemed to do when a new manager comes in. He seems to sort of take up the challenge. I just think, do we get to a point where a new manager comes in, Vardy suddenly gets another lease of life? And then does the manager, and I can't see this happening, but does the manager become too scared to drop him because it's Jamie Vardy?
I don't think so. I mean, the one thing about Maresca, although I think, we've been a little bit complacent, and I do wish that we would play a little bit more, not direct, but quicker. I don't think he will let this malaise, as it is, of a couple of games last for too much longer without doing something about it. He makes all the right noises. He's getting a little bit chippy, I think, in terms of when I wish he's getting a little bit chippy when questions are posed to him. So if the pressure does come on and he starts getting asked more and more questions, it's going to be interesting how he reacts to that. But I would hope that he would be ahead of us all and would be thinking about how he needs to turn this round. And, possession is sort of vanity, really, isn't it, without creating chances? Yeah. And then, if you're creating the chances, someone will start putting them away. It's when you're not creating them. And I've just seen a little bit of complacency setting in, which I hope this 2 weeks he'll have been able to kick out.
Get this in before you say it then. If I get one first. No, it's brilliant. It's great. That it's just funny that everything I say, I'll ask that. Go and say it. You actually said earlier, Tom Cannon's that sort of fox in the box.
Yeah.
And could that be the sort of the player that we're looking for then? That when the ball is up and wide and they're looking to cross it in, that Cannon's there up for it.
I think so. It's interesting though, because you need that, but then Maresca does seem to want his strikers to drop back and get involved in the play as well. So, he's asking a lot of a centre forward to be able to do that. And the only way that you can do that and have a centre forward who drops into that hole is if you've got wide people who are then intelligent enough to fill the gaps in behind you. The last couple of seasons, Harry Kane, was starting to drop a lot deeper, but then they brought in Kulusevski on the right. They played Son off the left, who were utilising that space and making more diagonal runs in behind where the centre forward should be. Our guys, our wingers, tend to hug the touchline a little bit more. So when the striker drops deep, they're still out wide, ready to receive the ball, rather than them being the ones who fill the space. The one who tends to be looking to fill that space is Dewsbury Hall. And that happened. It was almost like a tactic we saw a couple of times against Leeds, where Inacho or Vardy would drop deep, the wingers would stay wide, and the keeper would be hitting a long ball over the lot of them straight into that hole for Dewsbury Hall, but he didn't get on the end of them. So, he's got to, if he wants his striker to play in that fashion, either one of those central midfielders has got to be brave enough to break the line and go into that space, or one of the wingers has got to do that role. Otherwise, we're just going to have a lot of play 40 yards from goal.
Yeah. Scott says there, play Sutar up front, big target man. Steve Walsh,
Yeah.
Matt Elliott, who I'm trying to get on a show at the moment. 2 goals in the final. He was obviously another defender. All right, Steve Walsh is probably more of the sort of obvious comparison, but he does it for Australia, doesn't he?
He's banging the goals in for Australia. I think he's way up there on the top goal scorers list. But I don't think we're quite got to that level of desperation yet where they'd put him up front, to be honest.
Desperation is an interesting word. And Maresca's a very proud man. He's his own man. He said this at the start. He said, I am my own man. Don't think I'm, Pep's number 2, etc., etc. Do you think he will be ringing Pep for advice?
No, not at all. I think he will have learned, from the people that he's been around. He may do. I'd be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of talk of him being friendly with De Zerbi as well at Brighton, and to be honest, that's not going so great for Brighton as well. They're very inconsistent as well. But I think pretty much he needs to and he wants to step out of the shadow of Pep, because let's face it, nobody had heard of him before he went to Man City, even though he had that. It's funny enough, he was on the coaching staff, wasn't he, at West Ham when the helicopter went down. But nobody had really heard of him, and it's that being linked with a treble-winning side that's brought him to the attention of clubs like us. So I think it's important that he steps out of that shadow and he becomes his own man, and he'll either profit or plunder by it. But I think he's in that state. I think we, as much as he was the right man for the club, I think we were the right club for him as well, to be able to try and step out of that shadow. And everything at the club is set up for an ambitious manager to come in and put his stamp on it. And I think he's trying to do that.
That table is going to change in one way or another tonight, even if it just means Leeds have played an extra game. I can't see Rotherham losing. They are, third from bottom, to be honest with you. I've gone for a Leeds win. You've probably gone for a Rotherham 3-0 win, and you'll get it, and you'll go further up the table.
I can't remember. I think I may have gone for a draw or just a Leeds sneaky win. I'm going to say, because they took points off. They're holding out at the minute, and they've played a minute. So
it's only 89 to go. Then who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think that win that we got at Rotherham is proving to be a pretty good result, to be honest, because a lot of clubs are finding it a struggle to go to Rotherham.
It was never going to be, I guess, the League One under Nigel Pearson season, was it? Duplicate of that, where we virtually won. Did we lose about 5 or 6 games? That was all season.
I think it was probably less than that, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a decanter, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was never going to happen. And I think maybe the worst thing that could have happened for us as a club is the fact that we did get off to such a good start. And I don't think the fact that we played teams that weren't, any good, because we played Southampton, who, let's face it, are up there at the moment. We beat Preston, we beat Cardiff. Three of the top 7 we've beaten. We beat Norwich, who were up there as well when we beat them. So we didn't have sort of an easy start, if you like. I just think it did sort of come easy. Maybe we're riding on a wave of optimism or not. I don't know, but we're still there, and that's the thing. At the end of the day, yes, we lost 2 games, and every team's going to have a bad run. Leeds started with a bad run. Norwich are on a terrible run at the moment. Ipswich haven't had theirs yet. That's still to come. Southampton have had a couple of blips, and we are going to get that. And the fact that we were able to, we're still, 11 points clear of Leeds.
Yeah, we can afford to drop more. I think if you look at it in a little bit more detail in terms of the performance, levels of performance, we've probably not wiped the floor with anybody. Southampton was probably the best performance of the season, where we created a lot of chances, scored a lot of goals. But in other games, they've sort of been, won by the odd goal, some late goals. I think in that first run of games, our goal to chances created percentage would have been pretty high, to be honest, because we were pretty lethal in front of goal when we were creating chances. And I think that's where we've sort of slipped off. We're just not taking the chances, and we're not giving up loads of chances either. You know, we're giving up a little bit more possession and some chances. I mean, it was a wonder goal, wasn't it? The Middlesbrough one.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise that would have probably been a deserved 0-0. But you know, I think as we all said, everybody said it's a long season, and it'll even itself out. I think we've just got to, you know, stick to the principles. And when you look at the squads, Southampton have got a good squad. Leeds have got a good squad. We've got a good squad. You would still expect the three of us to be in around that top six for the rest of the season, I think.
I want to compare Enzo, and I know it's always awful comparing, and we'll come on to predictions in a minute. Get your predictions in the chat, by the way, we'll come on to them. But just before we do that, for myself and Craig, I want to go back to two other managers that we had. You had one in Martin O'Neill that never gave up. That, you know, if there's 96 minutes the game, you know, the players will still be, you know, fighting for the ball in the dressing room after the final whistle. They never gave up, and we have got a lot of last-minute goals under Rodgers. And look, we've got to compare it to Rodgers because that's who was here last season.
Yeah,
we seemed to sort of, it went the other way, didn't it? And we always conceded, and we sort of gave up after sort of 70 minutes, or sometimes after 7 minutes. But you know what I mean. And you know, that's the thing. We're like, all right, so we've won 1-0. I mean, we won the Premier League on 1-0, didn't we? So again, let's, you know, take these, you know, glasses off that, you know, where we think we're going to sort of walk this league. We are, you know, we've got a team that isn't giving up, a team that, you know, until that final whistle goes, even against Middlesbrough, and all right, you know, we weren't playing well, and you could play, we'd probably still be playing now, we wouldn't be scoring, but I was always a little bit of me thought, yeah, we might just nick something here, we might just nick a draw here, and I'd sooner be in that position, like I say, the O'Neill position than the Rodgers position, where, you know, if we're down at 70 minutes, well, that's it, we've lost.
Yeah, I think under Rodgers, it was, you know, it got to the point where, as you say, if we went a goal behind, it was unlikely that we were ever going to come back.
Yeah.
And that is just sort of self-manifesting prophecy of it. It just carries on. You know, the next game when that happens and you go a goal down, the belief sort of drains away that we've now got to score two to win a game. And if you're not scoring that many goals, you know, earlier this season we went behind in a few games, but we came back. And I think, you know, teams are very much in their a reflection of their manager. And, you know, Pep hasn't got where he's got and the teams that he's built by being a nice guy. You know, he might want to come across as a nice guy, but you can all see that there's a lurking psychopath behind those eyes with Pep. The same going back to Fergie, even Wenger, you know, had a nasty streak to him, you know, and he got involved in a few touchline struggles. I'm not sure where Maresca sits on this at the minute. I think there's a steely determination in him. And you see the reaction when we've got late goals and you know, he reacts as if he's a player, as if he's a fan. And the fans love that, you know, much rather, you know, that, you know, jumping up and down, jumping on your colleagues or whatever when you've scored a winning goal or a late goal or whatever, than they're standing there clapping like a penguin. So, yeah, exactly, you know, geez. So I think, you know, he knows this is his big chance. Because there's every chance if he doesn't. Imagine the scenario that a new manager has stepped out of the shadow of Pep, has had such a fantastic start to the season, and lets it slip away. And the following season, it doesn't really happen for him again. He's slipping back into obscurity again, because this is his chance. And I think he comes across as a guy who's going to grab the opportunity. So I think he will be kicking some backside and getting the team back on track pretty quickly.
Yes. Let me ask your score predictions, and
Mm.
I'll let you go first because I might have to pinch yours because
Yeah.
you're doing so much better than me in the prediction league.
I'm not. I can't remember what I've done, but I think I've gone 2-1. I think, or have I gone 2-0? 2 something. I'm going to go 2-0.
It could
Clean
be
sheet.
2-5. You know,
Yeah, 2-0. 2-0.
2-0. I haven't quite gone the same as you, but I nearly did because I'm thinking 2-1.
Right.
I've not
Yeah, I
actually,
might have done. When you do the show, you'll see what I've gone for. It's
yeah,
one of them.
I've not actually even put my predictions in yet because mine are taken live in the show. So 2-0. We're not making note
Oh, I
of that.
assume that you've put one forward for the Rotherham Leeds game, though.
Well, that's because it's kicked off now.
Yeah. What did
Yes,
you go for in this one? In
2-1
the
to Leeds. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, 2-1 to Leeds,
Oh, right. Okay.
who have just scored.
Have
Uh,
they? Right.
yes.
Well done.
Nice goal, actually.
Oh, you must be really pleased. Well done.
Well, if I'm going to get a point. I suppose that's something, isn't it? Anyway, Scott has gone 2-0 to Leicester. Luca went 2-0 early, so they've both agreed with you. I've gone 2-1. Right. Now, we don't do the pick a team because, like I say, it shows a lovely goal. Just showing it again, actually.
Mm.
Because he does change it just because he can do,
Yeah.
so there's no point in just trying to predict the team. But who do you expect to be starting up front? Do you think Can will get his first chance? Or do you think he'll play safe and not bring him on until like the 60th and start with Vardy?
I think he'll start with Iheanacho,
Right.
to be honest, and then have and Cannon come off the bench ahead of Vardy. I think, at some point he's got to throw him in and see what he's made of.
Yeah.
So I think he'll start with Iheanacho.
Because I was going to say, if suddenly, Cannon suddenly starts playing well, where does that leave Iheanacho? Or do we finally say, look, Jamie, your contract's up to the end of the season. Love you to stay and obviously try and get us up there, but that's it. Thank you and for everything you've done.
Yeah, I mean, if we've got replacements, I wouldn't be overly sad if we can get a decent fee for Iheanacho, to be honest. Even at this level, he should be scoring a lot of goals. But has he got the killer instinct in him to do it? Has he got that side to him?
He has, but I just think it's the way he's being played. Like you said, they are being asked to go deeper.
Yeah, which is more his game, although sometimes, I'm sure he's got a twin brother because sometimes he has a great first touch and other times in some games it's an absolute shocker, to be honest. His second touch is a tackle. But I think he'll start with him because I think he wants to build that play up. But then, we've got to get forwards. We've got to get players back in the box and start, getting some goals.
Suter, we mentioned him before, Suter. I mean, for me, when he played a couple of games for us, didn't he? Liverpool in the Cup and I forget what game was after that. And he looked pretty decent. I don't think he did a bad job. I think, for me, he's one. And I understand Christian going, and I understand if Luke Thomas doesn't come back because neither of those fit into Maresca's style of play. But I think Suter does fit into his style of play. And I think we should try and keep hold of him.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's only been here a year. I think there's, still relatively young, learning the game still under a progressive coach. I mean, you can't say that he would have had a progressive coach at Stoke. I wouldn't have thought of any of the managers that he's got there, that he had there. So I think he's young enough, and he looks like he has a desire to learn. So I'd be sticking with him as well.
Cody, what do you make about Cody? Because we're all going like, wow, yeah. All right, he got injured, and I'm glad to say that he's not just come back in purely because of the fact of who he is. Vestergaard's in there, and taking my blue tinted spectacles off, deserves to be in there. I think in his performances. He's got to come in at some point, hasn't he?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because Farce has been playing fantastically well this season as well, and he has that turn of pace that Cody doesn't have. So it's tricky. You wouldn't have thought that we'd be, a dozen games into the season and thinking, well, where does Cody fit in? When we bought him, we were all thinking, what a fantastic signing. England international, all those years of Premier League experience. But it's difficult because he's not as quick as Farce. He's not as aggressive as Farce. I would say he probably reads the game better, but he's not as good on the ball as Vestergaard. So it's a tricky one, to be honest, to see where he does fit in without one of the others either being injured or suspended. Which Vestergaard's going to get suspended pretty soon anyway.
Yeah, and I think as well, if we go back up, looking at it long term, is Vestergaard going to be like he is now in the Premier League? Probably not, if I'm honest.
Well, he believes he belongs there, doesn't he? He believes that he belongs in a in one of the top leagues. It's up to Maresca, because Maresca obviously really likes him as a ball-playing centre half who starts a lot of the moves. It's who. If it's not Cody, it's usually Vestergaard who's not Cody. Sorry, Winks. It's Vestergaard who's getting the ball off the keeper. But and Maresca has come out and said this. He recognises the limitations of Vestergaard. So it's up to the rest of the players to cover for that. Now, in theory, he could take that forward into the Premier League as well, as long as he's got the players around him. That does he bring enough of that ball-playing centre-half bit to the team that no one else can, that he puts him in there and then builds the team? It sounds weird building a team around your centre-half, but from a defensive perspective, I think he would already be looking for a ball-playing centre-half to come in, if not in January, in the summer, because, that limitation of pace, you're going to get caught out when you go up. So I'd be surprised if he was the first choice if we went back up, but it wouldn't surprise me.
2 losses, and just before we sort of move on, 2 losses that said Enzo is not good, but 3 would be even worse. Dangerous words.
Well, to be honest, if that's a criteria for being a manager, we're all in with a shout, because he's not really said anything breaking there, but at least it's that recognition of you can't let that go on, and I would imagine that he's instilled that into the players. But you can't also get into a mindset where it's all about stopping the rot of losses and be happy with a point. These games are there to be won, and you've got to go out with the mindset to win them, not to just not lose. Well,
none of us are thinking we're going to, but then again, we didn't do that with the last 2 games, did we? Moving on then to foot in both camps. Now, can you name any players we know a manager, don't we, that's been at both clubs?
We do.
Can you think of any players?
Players who have been, I'm sure you've pulled some out, haven't you?
I pulled one out.
Pulled one out.
I looked at some others, and the place I looked at's taken the page down. So I can't one. And I didn't know this one. This was one, and I did get this off a Watford page, to be honest with you. But I did not know this. But
go on.
David Connolly.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have had him as a Watford player, but he was one of those players who's been to a lot of clubs, hasn't he?
It was one of his
Dick hasn't turned up.
He started, and he was one of his young, as you can see from there, he looks about 10. He started out at. We had him on the channel here talking about his career. A lovely, lovely guy. I think he does a lot of punditry now.
He does, yeah.
I always liked him as a player.
Yeah. I had a sneaky feeling that Colin Hill had played for Watford at some point, but I've probably made that up.
I'm not going to argue with you because I'll look stupid.
Oh, I would.
Correct. But I don't know if I'm honest with you on that one. But I always liked David Connolly.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. He was yeah, we had quite a few of those little players. Again, similar to Dickov, without the Scottish aggression, but a very sort of twisty, turny striker, nippy, who knew where the goal was. No, I liked him as well.
I think it's any of the players that were in the team around that time were always going to struggle, weren't they? We weren't doing very well at all. Now we also, well, because we're not picking the team, we also, and I'm sorry about this, everybody. Don't just leave in your droves. They'll be like, no liking or liking. Do you watch that? Do you know what I mean, though?
I do know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, suddenly it'll be bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, I always think it's not really surprising that they've never made a blokes version of that. Are they good? No. If they had 20 blokes on that panel, none of them are turning their lights off. They'll all fancy the chances of a date.
Exactly. But we're going to have to do this. The game that we remember between these two teams.
Yeah, 12th of May, 2013. Deeney.
Yes. I didn't know whether to put his picture up or the Sky Sports report.
Yeah. The guy, I mean, yeah, you've taken away one of my questions there by putting them in, but I know you'd use that. But I do have obviously a little quizzy question for you on the back of it. But yeah, you're right. And when we were talking about this previously, this was not only an iconic game, but a pivotal game in Leicester's history, really, because after that game, everything up until last season was on an upward trajectory. It's such it's a shocking game, wasn't it, really? Because you got that penalty right at the end, and yes, it may have been a little bit of a dive, but you've got that to get the 2-2 draw that you're through. You're through to a Wembley final, having won the first leg 1-0. Even missing it, you get through to extra time. But for the way that went, for them to go up the other end and get that goal was just absolute shocker for everyone involved, other than all the Watford fans and the manager and the commentator who's made a career out of it.
Who was the manager? It was ex-Chelsea player, wasn't it?
It was Zola, wasn't it? I'm sure he was on his. Yes. I think he ruined a suit, didn't he, doing a knee slide onto the pitch?
Probably. I mean, look, we were 1-0 up from the first leg at home. I always still, to this day, blame our son. I was watching that with both my two sons. And my oldest one said, yeah, we've got a penalty. We're getting excited, me and Simon. And Sean just looked at us and said, we've got to score it first. Always blame him for that. Yeah. I just think it was yes. I mean, they got through to the final. They lost the final. I think it was to Blackpool, wasn't it, that season?
Crystal Palace, I think.
Was it Palace? Sorry, was it? Right. Okay, sorry. My
that was another of my quiz questions that you would have got wrong, Chris, as well. You're ruining it.
I'm doing well. But in a way, I think it did as well not winning. And I know that's going to sound daft, but when you look at like Blackburn and Coventry last season in the play. Did I freeze there? I may have frozen.
You did freeze, Chris. Yeah, I wasn't sure whether it was me or you, but
no, I think it is me looking at my signal. I may go again in a minute. But you look at Coventry not building on it last season, and I think that's the thing that we did is that we said, right, Nigel Pearson, probably the best manager we could have had following that. I think we didn't expect to get to the playoffs, if I'm honest with you, this season, that particular season. Right. But our response was, well, it was just unbelievable. We had probably the best season. We broke every record I think that the club held. Yeah,
that was it. Was it the 102 points season or 104, whatever it was, the following season?
Yeah.
And so that the promotion season followed by the Great Escape, followed by Did we win the league? That did actually happen, didn't it?
I think so. Otherwise, I've wasted a lot of money on
Yeah.
something just to look good.
I didn't know if it was all going to be a dream and we're going to wake up and we're actually Tottenham.
I think we actually got through to a semi-final of a European competition as well.
We might have done.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals of the Champions League. Yeah.
God,
Them were the days, weren't they, Chris? Hey, them were the days.
Who wants that though? It's proper football in Championship, isn't it?
It is proper football with no VAR. Let's not go there.
Yeah. Oh no. East Side View. Good evening. How are you? Welcome along. Go on then. Show me up.
Well, no, I mean you've taken a couple of the questions already, so I'm going to ask, but I know you're going to get this one right.
Oh God, no pressure then. You know I'm not. You know I never get these right.
I think you are. Who replaced Chris Wood in both legs, coming on as a sub in the 61st and the 63rd minutes in those two games? Same player came on for Chris Wood in both legs.
He did, and I don't know what has happened to this guy. He hasn't had much of a career. He hasn't won anything, this guy. No. He's had a very poor career. See, I kind of knew that you were going to ask me a question because you always did. And I tried to do what you did. I thought I'll do a bit of homework this time. I think it was a certain Mr. Harry Kane, wasn't it? It was.
Harry Kane came on for Chris Wood in both legs, and a certain Jamie Vardy didn't get off the bench in both legs either.
No. How things change, but
yeah, indeed, I'm clearly going to have to work a little bit harder because I thought these questions were a little bit too easy for a man of your knowledge, and now you've admitted to doing homework.
To be honest with you, the only reason was because you weren't sure whether you were coming on or not. I didn't do the thing until today, so it was still quite fresh in my mind. Normally, I've done it a couple of days before, and I've forgotten about it, what have you. That is the only reason. But let's quit on it while we're ahead. Let's not. Yeah, let's do that. Funny thing is, neither of us are very good at answering other one's questions, are we?
No, not really.
We have a new leader as well, I should say, on the quiz league.
Oh, have I been beaten? Who is it now?
Well, let's have a look. Let's bring this up. Here we go.
Have a look indeed.
I hope that's the up-to-date one, is it? No, that's the wrong one. Hang on a second. I don't think I've uploaded it, which is usually the case. No, I haven't uploaded it. It's Neil.
Ah, right, okay. That's fair enough.
He struck lucky with a lot of the. I mean, the questions. You either know them or you don't.
Yeah.
And he struck lucky with some of them. There's an easy one that he should have got right and he didn't. But when he picked his own, you pick your own season at the end.
Yeah.
He got 3 of those right. So that was 6 points straight away.
It's interesting because we've had a new guy start at work in the last couple of weeks. Him and his brother are huge Leicester City fans, and they represented Leicester in a national football quiz competition going back a few seasons. So I've tapped him up and said maybe we'll have to get him on and give him a go on this and see how he goes with it.
And if he says yes, you'll have to tick me the wink so that I can make sure the questions are harder.
Exactly.
I don't do that, of course. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Craig, thank you very, very much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Are you going tomorrow?
I shall be there. Yes, hopefully witnessing the start of another run of wins and unbeatenness. So we need to get back to it and. Hopefully a good performance as well, and a 2-0, or whatever I've predicted, victory would do us very well.
No. As long as I don't mind you getting a point, but stop getting these bloody 3 points, will you? That was what was keeping me above you. That I'd got more correct scores than you had. Now you've overtaken me, and I'm like I say.
It's a crying shame, Chris. It really
It
is.
is, and I do feel a bit like Everton at the moment. And I'm going down, but I just haven't had the points deducted, but I'm losing them anyway. Stay safe. Enjoy the game, mate. Thank you very, very much. And I will see you next week.
Yeah. Cheers, Chris. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Thanks to Craig, my wise old owl there. Emphasis on the old. Yes. I think that's his beard he's stroking. I don't know how far down it goes, the beard. But there we go. Thanks to Craig. Have a safe journey to the ground and stay safe, mate. I'm going to be back in 31 minutes, hopefully with Steve Linux. Hopefully he's coming back tonight. He's not been with us for a while. Take care, Craig. Thank you. He's not been, he's had a few family issues. So hopefully he's going to be back later on today at 9 o'clock. Brad definitely will be there, and I'll have the table. We might just put the table up very, very briefly for about 2 seconds and then take it down. Nothing to look at, nothing to see. But thanks to everybody who has been joining in. If you're new, please do subscribe. Even if you've not subscribed or you are subscribed anyway, please smash that likes. It does really get the views up on the channel. It gets us onto people's home pages that don't normally follow us. We're going to be back at 9 o'clock with Steve Linux, the X-Fox, with Brad, with me, Sloppy Seconds, and we'll be doing the prediction show. Thanks very much. And if you've been listening via your favourite podcast platform, whatever that is, thank you very much indeed. I need to go and get changed, so I wear a different shirt. You don't see me in the same shirt, do you? Take care, guys. All the best. See you in a bit.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.